Meet AI Anivia. No, he's not a robot, he's just a Korean Grandmaster player who climbed the whole way with full TANK Anivia top. TANK Anivia makes no sense, often buying 0 AP. Instead, this guy is taking Grasp of the Undying and farming a huge amount of free permanent health in lane. Also then buying Heartsteel, not even getting mana in his mythic. It seems stupid, but really this is such a smart pick, abusing Anivia's long range auto attacks and great CC to farm free stats from opponents who can't even touch her. Of course, this makes Anivia very tanky, but all of this health also transfers to the egg, creating a 4000 health distraction that enemies can never kill. This build turns Anivia from a low mobility mage into a playmaking frontliner who actually loves being inside a group of enemies to get a bigger shield on her FIMBULWINTER, even refusing to ever buy ZHONYAS. Our player says that for Anivia, Frozen Heart is even better. Let me show you how this bizarre pick works, even in Korean Grandmaster. But first, this week I received a special package from our sponsor, Manscaped. This is the new Performance Package 4.0, your all-in-one head-to-toe men's grooming and hygiene kit. With the new Lawnmower 4.0 electric trimmer, waterproof, cordless, and even has a light, which I've never seen before on a trimmer. It also has ceramic blades to reduce cuts, as well as 90 minutes use on a full charge and a wireless charger, even having a travel lock to avoid it turning on in your bag. Included as well is the Weed Whacker 2.0 nose hair and ear trimmer. It's vital to have one of these. And you also get 2 of their new products, a refreshing toner and an anti-chafing deodorant to keep you fresh. For a limited time when you buy the 4.0 kit, you also get the anti-chafing boxer briefs as a bonus for free, which are very comfortable. And the box even has a hidden compartment with even more goodies, with a super high quality travel bag. I've actually had one of these for over a year, and it's been perfect for all of my toiletries. With a 30-day money-back guarantee, I personally cannot recommend Manscaped enough, so please check out the link in the description and use code CHIME for 20% off, as well as free international shipping, and 2 free gifts if you order before they run out. Back to our Grandmaster player, known as AI Anivia, who's been an Anivia one-trick ever since he started playing League. His story with Anivia Top began as recently as Season 12, where he discovered this incredible synergy that Anivia has with Grasp of the Undying, inventing a completely new pick that was nothing like the Anivia of the past. Instead of being a hard-to-play, squishy, immobile mage, he was now a full tank frontliner, running past the enemy champions to get to their carry and lock them inside a field of ice for the whole fight. This pick scales up so quickly, gaining more health than even a meta tank, and also having such a strong laning phase to match. This all starts in Champ Select, where AI Anivia has 2 options. First is the full tank Grasp build, which he does against tanks and low mobility champions. This gives him a very easy lane for him to farm free stats. Alternatively, he does also have a tanky Electrocute Ignite version, which he's forced to pick against dive champions. This version starts off laning going for solo kills very early on, using the Ignite and Electrocute comboed with 2 points in Anivia's E to burst the enemy in lane. It's a lane dominating pick that refuses to let enemies get any CS or even play the laning phase. However, after buying an early Rod of Ages, even this build goes into a full tank one, so let's instead focus on Grasp full tank Anivia, the more interesting one. This laning phase starts just as you might expect, buying a tier. Even tank Anivia needs to use abilities, so right away he starts to stack it. At level 1, Anivia takes Q, mainly taking it for the safety, as the stun is perfect for stopping enemies jumping onto you, and lets you trap them inside your minion wave. However, another thing it does is set up your Grasp proc, with Anivia constantly auto-attacking the wave to keep it up, getting level 2 as fast as he can before the enemy. Anivia takes E. This is his main poke tool outside of the Grasp, and he wants to use it to push the enemy off the wave. The main reason Tank Anivia Top works is the 600 range this champion has on her auto attacks. This is a top tier range for an auto attack champion to have, and so when you combine this range with Grasp, enemies can't even touch a minion without being auto attacked. The funny thing is that Anivia's autos are very slow, but for Grasp this is actually kind of an advantage, because Anivia can start the auto before the Grasp is available, and by the time it hits the enemy 600 range away, the Grasp will then be up and it will proc. And this makes it so much easier to land these procs. The synergy is bizarre. At level 3, Anivia takes her wall, which is perfect to place down between you and the enemy if they jump on you so you can disengage. It's also really good for stopping ganks. Our player uses it on the enemy lane opponent to stop them from helping, and then just stuns the jungler and then tries to walk away. Much simpler than trying to 1v2. This is where we see the main strength of Anivia top lane, shoving the enemy under tower and poking them. First off, he takes Demolish, because this build stacks so much HP, and the damage of this rune scales with HP, it fits really well. But outside of that, with the Grasp auto attacks as well as his E, he can constantly annoy the enemy without spending too much mana. They're going to be focused on killing the huge wave you pushed under their tower, so they can't even really interact with the Anivia, and if they do, they would just be stunned and focused by all of his minions. Anivia isn't really the one who's in danger. One thing I have to mention that's not really off meta at all is how insanely good this guy is at CSing. Not only is he harassing constantly, but he's also CSing pretty much perfectly on a champion with some of the slowest auto attacks in the whole game. One thing you don't have to be good for is dying, and this is actually one of the huge benefits of Tank Anivia, the egg. The egg itself is really hard for most top laners to kill. Most champions in this lane are quite low DPS, especially early on. Enemies mostly have to use all of their combo to kill you the first time, so they don't have anything left to finish off a full health egg. When you add on Tank Anivia stacking Grasp and getting HP, as well as taking resistances in her runes, it's even slightly harder to kill than usual, with our player even flashing back towards tower to make it very risky to try and dive. At level 6, Tank Anivia unlocks her AoE slow tool. The enemy now has no chance of reaching you ever again. Before 6, it wasn't easy for enemies to get to you, but now Anivia can just drop the slowing field and outrun anyone who tries to get to her, putting them at risk of being stunned inside it and the wave. Already by level 6, Anivia has now procced Grasp 20 times, giving her 140 permanent health for free, and dealing an extra 250 damage to the enemy just from this tank rune. This amount of stacks is ridiculous compared to most of the meta users, who can only proc it a few times in early game. Even if they're playing super aggressive, none of them can come close to getting 20. With his ultimate, he starts to absolutely farm this lane, using Grasp over and over. Usefully, even your ult keeps your Grasp stacked, so at any time if the enemy is in range, they'll be slowed and you can always get another proc. It becomes so silly. Next, his goal is to buy Heartsteel, a ridiculous item for Anivia. However, with all of the health stats, it really enables her frontline fighter playstyle. But Heartsteel is not only a health item for Anivia, it's actually also a damage item as well. Since she stacked so much health already, the Grasp auto attacks are starting to do some actual damage. And when you add this to the Heartsteel proc, which deals 125 bonus physical damage and 6% max HP damage, that means the one auto attack can deal over 250 damage itself, even more against a tank. So on top of this constant poke, every 30 seconds Anivia can take a chunk of the enemy's health away just with an auto attack. Coming into mid game with all of this stacking, Anivia will have more health than most junglers and even most tanks. The way our player uses this is to then buy mobility boots, something which itself has become quite off meta, but the reason these work so well with Anivia, first off, speed and CC are a great combo, so it's really easy for her to make plays, but also the speed doesn't get cancelled by Anivia's wall. As long as you don't hit the enemy with the wall and instead use it to block off an escape route, the mobility boots will keep going, letting Anivia trap someone and then still get in range after to follow up with a Q stun to set up the kill. Our player has one very specific play where he goes mid lane, using this extra speed to try and find a catch. Anivia still has her incredible CC and catch potential with this build, and at this stage Anivia is really tanky. Lots of enemies, especially mid lane mages, won't have enough damage to even kill you. However, Anivia can still CC them and catch them out. It's a one-way fight which Anivia will always win. So with this pressure, he wants to force down the enemy mid tower and create a huge advantage for his team, opening up the map. I think the reason this works so well is because Anivia herself is not that good at doing damage. Damage isn't really the reason she gets picked. The good thing about her is the way that she does damage, which is by trapping enemies in a bad spot and forcing them to stay there until they die. So even Tank Anivia has the ability to do this. Having more health just means he can be even riskier in fights and reach more backline immobile targets to catch them. In many ways, this build is a more reliable way to use her strengths, without the risk of being instantly bursted. And if Tank Anivia ever does die, she then has the egg ready to bait enemies in. At this point it has about 3000 health, so one enemy won't be able to kill it by themselves. And if they try, that just gives Anivia's team more time to catch up and collapse. One trick our player uses is that if he knows he's about to die in a bad spot, he'll instead hug a wall and flash over as the egg pops. This means the tanky egg will spawn on the other side of the wall, making it harder for the enemies to reach. Amazingly, next he buys FIMBULWINTER, converting his tier. This makes Anivia into more of a diver, able to reach an important target and stay on top of them, with the shield amount increasing based on the amount of enemies nearby. This comboed with your general tankiness, it makes it very hard to stop this pick. He's always able to get a well-placed ult in fights, and always able to get a good wall to block enemies in a bad position, using zone control to win the fight. Even a Jinx Lulu, one of the strongest duos in the game right now, spend their whole fight trying to kill the Anivia, only able to pop her egg before realizing it isn't worth it. During this time where she's tanking their damage, Anivia's team finish their part of the fight and join her to kill the Jinx. No matter how much damage you have, she will waste your time. And as I mentioned earlier, he even refuses to buy ZHONYAS on Anivia, preferring Frozen Heart instead. His reasoning is that Frozen Heart is 300 gold cheaper, and it provides 90 armor instead of the 45 you get from ZHONYAS. And same thing for the ability haste, you get 20 from Frozen Heart instead of 15 from ZHONYAS. ZHONYAS does have the invulnerability, but on tanky Anivia, this doesn't really fit the playstyle. You're happy to be taking damage and distracting people. If you ZHONYAS, that'll just make enemies focus your teammates instead. So instead he buys Frozen Heart. Having the 20% attack speed slow and reducing incoming damage as well will make him more tanky, and of course bonus mana, which Anivia always wants. In teamfights as tank Anivia, your job is to engage, catching someone with your Moby Boot speed, and wall to block off their escape. At this stage he has about 4000 HP, and with egg up that's another 4000 HP. So at this point of the game, I don't think there's any other champion that can be as tanky as Anivia. I don't even think Mundo would have 8000 health, so enemies cannot afford to focus you. If they spend the time auto-attacking you to death, they're just wasting time they could have spent killing the rest of your team. That 8000 damage would have been enough to kill pretty much everyone else. But instead, enemies are so worried about leaving an Anivia alive, they focus her, and she even lives to still win the fight. Here the enemy AD carry wastes their whole fight trying to kill Anivia Egg, buying time for Anivia's teammates to chase them down, finish the kill, and all of this while Anivia is still alive, getting a kill on their support. Tank Anivia's damage itself is not very high, so instead of bursting the enemy AD carry, she kind of bullies them until they die. It looks unbearable playing against this guy, with him being impossible to kill, and his abilities outranging you on any AD carry champion, not to mention the added wall to block off your escape, which he also sometimes uses to peel or stop enemy engages from working, placing it between them and your carries to deny a dive and change the fight. At this stage, even the Rod of Ages build starts moving into being a tank, buying the same items like Frozen Heart or Force of Nature, really loving long team fights. This Electrocute build is better for the damage, but immediately you can see the weaknesses of Anivia start to appear, due to her squishiness and immobility, meaning she can't fully participate in every single fight, and is more likely to get forced into a bad spot. However, these weaknesses are much less obvious with the full tank build. To rate this pick, Anivia in top lane as a tank is perfect. She can seriously take advantage of having Grasp in lane, giving her tank stats much faster than most meta picks. So by mid game she becomes a huge threat. And her laning isn't weak either. In top lane all matchups are playable, tanks are very easy to farm stats from, and fighters can be poked down and neutralized. By mid game, Anivia is exactly what you would want from a tank. A huge amount of AoE CC and distraction as well as peel. I think this pick is especially good in high elo, where making a good pick can snowball into winning a game. But either way, this pick is very unique and useful. For the full Electrocute build, he takes Ignite Flash, and starts Doran's Ring for the maximum early game power to get a kill in lane, then going Rod of Ages, before swapping to a full tank build with mobility boots. Choosing between Frozen Heart and Force of Nature, the full tank build, which I would recommend more, takes Teleport Flash, giving him more safety in lane so he can teleport back, and also having much better macro later on thanks to it. He always starts Tear as well as 2 health potions for early sustain, basing early for Giant's Belt for the extra health, into Heartsteel, then mobility boots, converting your Tear into Fimbulwinter, and then the same tank items, Force of Nature, Frozen Heart, and even Warmogs. This Grandmaster Anivia has a YouTube channel where he uploads gameplay, and thanks again to our sponsor Manscaped. Check out their all-in-one grooming and hygiene kit, both are linked in the description. Thanks so much for watching.